Good midday, good midday, good midday, good midday, good midday, good mid of the day. We are grateful to God for each and every one of you being here and grateful to God for another week. The sun is out. It's going to warm up just a scoshy bit and in comparison to what we experienced this weekend. But guess what? It's still a good day. I don't care what anybody says. I just don't allow madness and craziness to get in the way of my joy, my peace, and my contentment. This is the day that the Lord has made. We shall rejoice and be glad in it. So we want to welcome you to another edition of our snapshot. I'll see, I spelled it wrong. Uh-oh. It's supposed to be Monday, but I messed up, so I'm going to have to do better than that. Jemison, bless you for being here. Call it a good midday to you. Thank you, one and all, for being a part of this moment that we share on today. Kathy, bless your heart. Thank you so much for being a part of this moment on a Monday. On a Monday. Doe, Elder James, Tamika, bless your hearts for being here. And we thank God for you, one and all. Bless you. Bless you, Minister Sarah. Thank you for being here. And again, we are just glad that you are on. And those that will be coming on, we greet you in the name of He who is able to keep us from falling. Pamela, how are you? Praying that you're well and that you're blessed and better than blessed. Ah, I'm just thanking God. Even with that loss of an hour of sleep, it's still a good day. Still a wonderful day. It's a prosperous day. It's a day of joy and rejoicing and thanksgiving and gratefulness. Linda, how are you? Thank you so much for being here with us on today. And please, if you don't mind, hit that share button. Christy, Cora, how are you? How is everybody? Linda? And so we're grateful. We're grateful. We're grateful. We're grateful. Going to get started in another minute and go from there. Denise, how is you? How do you be? You better be well. Better be good. God is too good. Um, was Sunday morning worship just absolutely ridiculous? I just don't know what's wrong with y'all. Y'all, something done got a hold of you. And so we're grateful to God for that. Okay. Thank you, James, for letting us know that all is well and our presentation is up to snuff. Rosabelle, hope you're well. Stephanie, hope you're well. Y'all just don't know how to act anymore. I'm trying to figure out what done got a hold of y'all. Just cutting up and carrying on. But again, it is the day the Lord has made. Yes, we shall rejoice and be glad in it. Minister Faye, thank you. Yes, the Lord is good. Y'all church was off the hook too, Rosabelle. That's what I'm talking about. Best talk, best talk. Let's talk about where you go. And let it be known that all was well, and the power and the presence of the Lord was here. Ah, that's what I'm talking about, Stephanie. I got to talk about something. Out of all of this, Giovanni, bless you for being here. Out of all that we have talked about, all of the teaching, all of the, even to the point of stepping on toes and making folk a little slow about getting on now, I love every second of it. And the amazing thing about it is that that's the word of the Lord, and it is designed to help us to be what we have been called to be. And we're grateful to God for that. I'm thankful to God for what He is doing. But The thing, hey Cheryl, the thing that many of us must come to terms with, because a whole lot of us want to pray and let God do it all. A whole lot of us want to pray and that's the end of it. We go before the Lord, but then we don't actually put feet on our faith. Oh, teach, Pastor. I ain't even got started good. And when we recognize the importance of feet on faith, we will also recognize that in that call to prayer, in that call to hear and to listen, to receive, ingest, and digest what the Lord is doing and saying, there comes a time when you have to act upon that which the Lord has instructed you to do. LMA, dear, bless your heart. I want you to catch this, because a whole lot of times we have no problem going in a secret closet and talking to God. But when we come out of the closet, is there any activity? Is there any engagement? Is there any, what's the word I want to use? Any challenge? Thea, bless you for being here. Sheila Taylor, how is you? That makes us say, I have heard your voice. I have also heard your instruction. And so when you know that you are greatly favored of God, and this being favored of God has nothing to do with revenue. It has nothing to do with money. It has nothing to do with any of those things whatsoever. And I really want us to get this and understand this and wrap our minds around this. How are you, Carolyn? Glad that you are better today than you've ever been. And so we're grateful to God for that. But I want us to get this up here, because many times when we talk about the favor of the Lord, and yes, he provides money. Yes, he provides revenue. Yes, he provides opportunity. Yes, he does, Elder Pamela. But there has to come a time in the midst of the conversation between you and God that God's impulses, God's direction, Gaither, God's instruction also moves you into participation. Now, what am I saying? What am I saying? We look at the Nehemiah moment, and when we look at it, we see quite clearly that God has favored him. Now, God don't give you favor for the sake of saying I got favor. God gives you favor for the sake of engaging people and projects to his glory and to his praise. Rhonda Fletcher, good to have you here. Listen to what I'm saying, because this is really important. Because again, and I'm going back to it one more time, we don't never want to put feet on our faith, but we want God's feet to be our faith. And so he was favored, even though he was in captivity. Artaxerxes had him working as his cupbearer, and he believed in this Hebrew. Mary Moss, how are you? Praying that you're doing well. Let your sister know we're going to continue to pray for her too. Total recovery, total recovery. Hey, Iris, how are you? Sylvia Scott. And so when you recognize that God's hand is upon you, even in a repressive situation, and I think Elder James, we kind of had some conversations about this, about what used to be and where you used to be at, and the environment that you were in was hostile toward you as a African American person, but God's favor did for you what a supervisor, a manager, or anybody else could ever do. I wish I had 5 people. And so here he is. He's in captivity, and he's a slave, but he yet still has favor. And even if you look at Joseph, you'll see throughout all of the persons who have ever had to go, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, Daniel, when you look at all of these people, Erica, they are all in tight, tough places. But in the midst of the tight and tough, God showed them who's tougher, and it's him. And so they all had favor to the point that there was jealousy. Of course, anytime, and you might as well get ready for it. And you might as well get used to it. And let me add one more thing. You might as well get over it. People going to hate you because of God's hand. They ain't going to hate you because of your money. They're not going to hate you because of where you live or what you drive. They're going to hate you because you seem to have influence over people. People who normally can't stand people that look and act like you, they embrace. I wish I had 5 people that are catching what I'm saying. And so here we see, Chaplain Hearns, here we see something very powerful, because around about 458 BC, Ezra began the work on the wall. Let me help you. He took an expedition of Jews to Jerusalem, and while they were there, they began to rebuild the temple, but there was a problem. And the problem is that the Persian Empire had what we want to call them, captains, that had decided that the work can't take place. The rebuilding of the temple is not going to happen. They stood in the way, and there was an abrupt stop to the work. But how many of you know that delay is not denial? Can you put that, please, in the chat? I know I'm wearing y'all out from that, but I need you to understand that delay is not denial, because there will always be some level of opposition to a mighty move of God. But whenever God impresses upon people to do what needs to be done, it shall be accomplished. You need to encourage yourself on that for just a second. You need to tell yourself delay is not denial. You need to out of whatever is happening, out of whatever seems to be going wrong, whatever seems to be going awry, no matter how slow God seems to be operating, no matter how micro movements that seem to be happening in your life, delay is not denial, because what God says he will do, he will do. And so the word got back to Nehemiah that which was going to take place has now come to an abrupt end. All of a sudden, we see that the Persian overlords, that's who they are. The Persian overlords had decided all of this was going to stop. Ain't none of this going to happen. We're not going to allow you to do this. And everything came to an end. But the word got back to Nehemiah. And when the word got back to Nehemiah, what he had been called to do began to radiate in his spirit. Now, I think there's something that many of us need to recognize and understand, that when he heard bad news ought to motivate you for a good outcome. Whenever you hear bad news ought to motivate you for a good outcome. Whenever you hear bad news ought to motivate you for a better or a good outcome. And why is that? Because bad news is a good opportunity for God to turn things around. Nehemiah heard the news, and he felt something in his spirit. There was this resurgence of his Hebrew nationality. It was this motivation of who he was born to be that began to scintillate in his spirit. And when it scintillated in his spirit, it also moved him toward action, not reaction, but action. Because many times when we react, we may react to just part or partial information. But when we, hey, Daryl Jones, how are you? But when we act, we recognize clearly that there's a call on your life. And I need us to get past this call of preaching and all of the rest of that stuff. There is a call on everybody's life, however minuscule you think that call is. Not every call is going to be a Daniel call. Not every call is going to be a Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego call. Every call is not going to be a Joseph call. Every call is not going to be a Nehemiah call. But what we must understand is whenever you see injustice, whenever you see racism, whenever you see a lack of opportunity, whenever you see the least of these being taken advantage of, something ought to move you to do something more than just talk about what you see. One thing that I saw, and I'm processing this, and in the midst of processing it, I'm asking God to show me from a scriptural basis how to counteract it. Can I talk about this for the next couple of minutes? I need us to get this. I don't know if you saw the reports about the top 10 most economically deprived cities in the state of Ohio, and Youngstown rated number 4 and Warren rated number 3. And then some of the other places, even Cleveland was involved in that survey. And the thing that many of us in those situations have to deal with is how economic distress also causes opportunities to diminish in our sight. Now, let me talk to you for just a second. Oh, God, Lord, give this to me. Let me communicate this like you gave it to me. And so what happens is when you are in a declining situation, it also erodes your faith. It also erodes your trust. It causes one to hear words of defeat. It causes people to not believe in the impossible because what's happening in their lives, our lives, is a direct result of a lack of opportunities. And those lack of opportunities transcends us from being hopeful to believing we're helpless. Teach, Pastor, I'm doing the best I know how. And so what happens is when we talk about faith in God and believing in God and trusting God, and you are living in an economic situation where it's difficult, Cecile, for you to pay your bills, and you can't. And I'm not talking about the people who waste their money. I'm not talking about, and I know I'm gonna get in trouble for saying this, but people who have decided to use other things to anesthetize the very situation that they are in. That's where alcoholism begins to rage. That's where drug addictions begin to flourish. That's when mental health begins to diminish, because we're trying to figure out how can we cope with this? What do we do when there's nothing happening there? And there are jobs, but after I've done ingested some things, I can't pass the drug test. I can't do this. And so what happens is I'm living in deplorable situation because I've now convinced myself that this is how I'm going to live the rest of my life. Our young people now believe that if they make it to age 25, they've lived a full life because of the diminishing of hope and resolve that takes place in these situations. I wish I had 5 people to understand. And so what is needed? Woo, what is needed? We got an Amber Alert going on right now. What is needed? Westchester, Ohio. Okay. A 1 and a 17-year-old Hispanic females have been taken. Listen. And so what happens is you come to church, you hear a word, you get motivated, but you go back to despair. You come to church, you ingest a word, you get happy, you go back to depression. When you hear a word, you do what you need to do, The problem is the word you hear is not affecting where you are. And so here's what has to happen. Somebody in the midst of, okay, thank you, Daryl. Some in the midst of that, you've got to have some Nehemiahs that do more than cry. You've got to have some people that do more than just sit back and cry, woe is me. Nehemiah, look at this. You need to read this book if you don't do anything else. The first thing Nehemiah did when he got the bad news was to prepare himself to do what God has called him to do. But he can't do the work until he has fasted and prayed. Oh, don't that sound familiar? We did not fast for 40 days for nothing. Some of us have still augmented our diets, and we're not doing that for nothing. We're doing this because the Nehemiahs have seen the situation, have seen the problem, have seen the desolation, have seen the destruction that has taken place, has found themselves in a hopeless situation. But the God of hope, the God of comfort, the God of supply says, here's what I need you to do. Before I show you how I supply, I need you to prepare yourself for the supplier to use you in the midst of a desolate situation. He fasts and he prays. He fasts and he prays, because it's a dangerous thing to step out to do something until you have sacrificed before the Lord, to show him that you will do whatever is necessary in order for his will to be done. Y'all remember Union? I got to go. I'm running over my time. Y'all remember when we used to fast for a couple of days, and then we went up to 30 days, and folk got to grumbling, oh my God. And then we now then got to the 40 days, and everybody's like, yeah, we could do. You know what happened? It was the transformation of people's mindsets to understand that just because you're here now doesn't mean that's where you stay. I got to go. Listen, y'all meet me tomorrow. We're going to talk about this. Let me share with you about the prayer thing on Tuesday night. It will be later in the evening because I'm going with the core team to the Action Banquet on tomorrow. And so what I need us to understand is that just because it's desolate now doesn't mean that the destruction will stay there forever. I gotta go. I gotta go. I gotta go. I gotta go. Listen, love you with the love of Jesus, who is the Christ. We thank God for each and every one of you that have come to be with us. I pray that you were blessed. I pray that you were motivated. I pray that you were challenged. I pray that your enthusiasm and your trust in God now puts feet on your faith. I believe, and I'm believing, and I'm believing, and I'm trusting, and I'm believing, and I'm trusting, and I'm believing, and I'm trusting that God, through these lessons, are going to take us places we have never gone before. Sounds like Star Trek, where no man has gone before. But guess what? I believe that God has greatness on the other side of this. Listen, holler at you later. May God bless you. May he keep you, is our prayer.